September 12, 1944. 8,000 feet over Peleliu. The steady click of an automatic camera echoed inside Major Robert, Cowboy, Stout's F6F Hellcat. His orders were simple: photograph the northern airfield, then return to the USS Hornet. Intelligence had assured him the field was empty, abandoned after weeks of bombing raids. But when Stout looked down through his canopy, his blood turned cold. The airfield below was alive. Row after row of Japanese aircraft, Mitsubishi Zeros, Nakajima bombers, lined up wingtip to wingtip. Fuel drums stacked neatly beside them. Ground crews swarming everywhere. They weren't abandoned. They were preparing for something big. Stout's quick count told him all he needed to know. At least 40 aircraft, fully armed, fully fueled. And he knew exactly what they were waiting for. In 3 days, 28,000 U.S. Marines would storm the beaches of Peleliu, one of the largest amphibious assaults in the Pacific. The invasion fleet was already en route. Those 40 Japanese aircraft were primed to strike first, to massacre the landing forces before they ever reached shore. Stout's training was clear. Observe. Report. Return. A reconnaissance pilot wasn't supposed to engage, especially not alone, and definitely not against a fully armed airfield bristling with anti-aircraft guns. But he also knew how long military bureaucracy could take. By the time he landed, filed a report, and command assembled a strike force, those planes would be gone. Hidden, dispersed, or worse, airborne. The Marines didn't have that kind of time. Stout climbed higher, studying the layout below. The Japanese, in their haste, had made a fatal mistake. Their aircraft were packed too tightly together, surrounded by exposed fuel drums. One spark, one explosion, and the entire field would go up like a match. He checked his ammunition: 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns, 2,400 rounds total. Just 12 seconds of sustained fire. Not enough to take out 40 aircraft individually, but maybe enough to ignite the whole field. And that's when Stout made his decision. At 28 years old, he wasn't reckless. He'd already flown 63 combat missions, survived dogfights with Zeros, and landed on carriers in storms that grounded everyone else. He knew the difference between bravery and suicide. But he also knew that hesitation meant hundreds, maybe thousands, of Marines would die. So he made his choice. He pushed the throttle forward. The Hellcat's engine roared as Stout rolled into a dive. The altimeter spun wildly. 7,000, 5,000, 3,000 feet. At 2,000 feet, he leveled off, just 50 feet above the jungle canopy, the trees whipping by in a blur. The airfield appeared suddenly through a break in the foliage. Japanese ground crews froze as the Hellcat burst from the tree line at nearly 400 miles per hour. They didn't even reach their guns before Stout lined up and opened fire. 6 machine guns thundered in unison, tracers ripping across the tarmac. A Zero exploded in flames. Then Stout shifted aim and hit the fuel drums. A second later, boom. A wall of fire erupted across the airfield, the blast wave rocking his Hellcat. Flames shot 50 feet high, leaping from plane to plane. The entire northern row was engulfed in seconds. Anti-aircraft guns finally opened up, tracers streaking past his canopy, but Stout was already climbing, weaving to spoil their aim. He'd barely escaped the first run, but below him the inferno spread fast. Dozens of aircraft were already burning, black smoke boiling skyward. Still half the field remained untouched. Stout checked his ammo. Half gone. 6 seconds of firing left. Going back meant suicide. He went back anyway. He rolled inverted, dove again, and this time the sky erupted with gunfire. Tracers surrounded him like angry hornets. He jinked left, then right, the Hellcat shuddering under hits. He lined up the southern row, bombers this time, and squeezed the trigger. His remaining rounds chewed through engines, wings, and fuel tanks. One fuel truck exploded, flipping a bomber upside down in a sheet of flame. The explosions fed each other, ammunition dumps, fuel drums, and bombs cooking off in a chain reaction. Within moments, the southern end of the field was gone too. Stout's guns clicked empty. His Hellcat was smoking, control surfaces damaged, warning lights flashing, but he'd done it. Below him, Peleliu's northern airfield was a sea of fire. Every aircraft, every fuel drum. He turned for the ocean. The flight back felt endless. The adrenaline drained, replaced by the heavy thought. He'd just disobeyed a direct order. Instead of photographing the airfield, he'd attacked it. Court-martial was a real possibility. But Stout didn't care. He'd rather face angry admirals than dead Marines. When the Hornet came into view, he radioed for priority landing. Hydraulics failing, oil pressure dropping, one landing gear stuck. He slammed onto the deck hard, catching the second wire. The deck crew rushed forward, shocked at the damage. The Hellcat's tail was shredded, riddled with holes, blackened by fire. Officers surrounded him immediately, demanding answers. Why the combat damage? Why radio silence broken? Why wasn't the airfield abandoned? Stout's report was short. The airfield wasn't empty. It was packed. I destroyed it. The officers were stunned. 40 enemy aircraft destroyed, by one pilot in one mission. Impossible. But the next day, reconnaissance photos confirmed it. The airfield was gone. Exactly 40 burned-out wrecks scattered across the tarmac. Stout's unauthorized attack had wiped out Japan's air power on Peleliu, saving the invasion fleet and possibly 1,000 lives. The Navy didn't court-martial him. They gave him the Navy Cross, the second highest award for combat valor, citing extraordinary heroism and aggressive fighting spirit. 3 days later, the Marines hit the beaches. The battle for Peleliu was brutal. 2 months of savage fighting across coral ridges and caves. Nearly 2,000 Americans were killed. But without Stout's attack, it would have been far worse. Those 40 aircraft would have torn the landing craft apart before they even reached shore. Historians later estimated his actions saved between 500 and 1,000 Marine lives on the first day alone. 8 minutes of combat, 1,000 lives spared. After the war, Stout went home to California. He rarely spoke about what he'd done. The Navy Cross sat quietly in a drawer. When friends asked, he'd shrug and say, "I saw planes that needed destroying, so I destroyed them." But not every pilot would have done the same. Most would have followed orders, radioed back, and let command handle it. Cowboy Stout understood something deeper, that sometimes the mission's intent matters more than the instructions. He hadn't been told to attack. He'd been told to protect the invasion. And that's exactly what he did. Today, military academies still teach his story, as an example of initiative under fire, of a man who broke the rules not for glory, but because following them would have meant disaster. 8 minutes. 40 enemy aircraft destroyed. 1,000 lives saved. One pilot who refused to follow orders, and changed the course of a battle. When you face a moment where doing what's right means breaking the rules, remember Major Robert "Cowboy" Stout circling over Peleliu. He knew what needed to be done. He knew the cost if he was wrong. And he did it anyway.